He never thought one small song at a school event would change everything. The lights were dim that evening. The crowd was small, just parents, teachers, and a few students. But for Armand, standing with a cheap guitar and shaky hands, it was the biggest stage of his life. He closed his eyes and sang from the heart. The words were simple, about a girl who once made him smile and a love that never happened. He didn't notice someone in the last row recording him quietly. That video, just 2 minutes long, went online the next morning. By evening, it had 200 views. By midnight, it crossed 10,000. In 3 days, 1 million. Armand didn't understand what was happening. Strangers were commenting things like this: "Voice is gold, and who is this guy?" His phone wouldn't stop ringing. A week later, a big music label called. They offered a contract, a real one, with money, and an apartment, and a team that would make him a star. He sat in the kitchen with his mother, both quiet, holding the contract. His mother smiled, but her eyes were wet. "Beta," she said softly, "don't lose yourself. No matter how high you go, remember who you are." He nodded, hugging her tight. But inside, a storm had already started. Somewhere, deep inside, he already wanted more. The day he left was cold. His friends waved at the bus stop. His small-town streets looked smaller now. Everything he had known felt far away the moment he stepped into the city. It was loud, bright, fast. His apartment had big windows, white walls, and silence that felt heavy. He missed his mother's cooking. He missed the sound of his father's old radio. But he told himself this was the price of dreams. The label introduced him to his new life. Fast, photo shoots, voice training, interviews. They changed his look, cut his hair, gave him new clothes, taught him how to smile in front of cameras. Every day felt like a race. But Armand kept singing. He poured his heart into every song, and people listened. His first single broke records. His second hit #1 in 5 countries. He couldn't believe it. He had fame now, but with every cheer he felt more tired. After shows, he sat alone in big green rooms. People came to take pictures with him, but no one stayed. His phone rang a lot, but no one called just to ask, "Are you okay?" Every night he lay in bed, looking at the ceiling, remembering that small stage at school and wondering where that boy had gone. He tried calling his mother more often, but even she had started sounding different. "You're so busy now," she said once. "Don't want to disturb you." That broke his heart a little. He missed her, but he didn't know how to say it anymore. One night, after a massive show, he was walking backstage when his manager handed him a phone. "Someone keeps calling," he said. They didn't say their name, but they sound ... emotional. Armand took the phone. "Hello," he said. A pause. Then a voice he hadn't heard in months. Soft, but sharp. "You're not the same boy I used to know." It was her. The girl behind his first song. The one he loved quietly. The one who never knew what she meant to him. Her name was Zoya. Before he could say anything, the call ended. He stood there frozen, the noise of the stadium fading in his ears. Later that night, he sat by his window, the city lights glowing outside like fireflies. His hands trembled as he opened an old folder on his laptop. It was full of songs he had written back then. Songs no one had ever heard. Songs about her. Songs about dreams, about fear, about home. He clicked on one of them. Just the lyrics. The title read, "Before the Noise." He whispered the words to himself and smiled. A sad, tired smile. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel famous. He just felt like Armand. The next morning, he made a decision. He called his producer and said, "I want to write something new, something real." The producer laughed. "You? Writing again? That's cute. But we have ghostwriters now. Let the pros do it." Armand stayed quiet, but inside, something was waking up. Something real. The next day, he skipped a studio session instead. He walked alone through the city, hoodie up, hands in pockets. At a small cafe, he sat with a notebook, began to write. He didn't know where it would lead him, but he knew one thing: he needed to find himself again, and maybe, just maybe, he needed to find her too. Armand couldn't stop thinking about her voice. That one sentence, "You're not the same boy I used to know," kept echoing in his mind. He hadn't spoken to Zoya in over a year. Not since he left town. Not since his music took over his life. She had been his closest friend once, his silent muse, and now she had become the one voice that pierced through all the noise of fame. The next morning, he skipped another studio session. His manager was furious. "You have deadlines, Armand. This album has sponsors. You don't get to disappear now." But Armand didn't listen. For the first time in months, he didn't feel like chasing charts. He just wanted to breathe. So he grabbed his backpack, put on a cap, and took a train back to his hometown. The journey was quiet. He looked out the window, watching the trees fly past. Everything felt familiar but distant, like a memory trying to come alive. When he finally stepped off at the old station, the air smelled different, like dust and nostalgia, like home. He walked through the streets where he once dreamed about fame. The chai shop owner still sat in the same spot. The tailor's shop still had the broken window. Kids ran barefoot on the road. No one recognized him. Or maybe they did and chose to leave him alone. It felt good. He stood outside her house for a long time. The gate was locked. The plants were dry. Something felt off. He knocked at the neighbor's door. An old woman opened it and stared for a second before smiling. Arman Beta. She said. He nodded. She left 2 weeks ago, the woman said softly. Zoya moved to the city. Said she needed a break from this place. His heart sank. Did she say where? The woman shook her head. Only that she was chasing a new beginning, but she left something behind. Told me if you ever came to give it to you. She went inside and returned with a sealed envelope. His name was written on the front, in Zoya's handwriting. He sat on the broken bench across the street and opened it. Inside was a letter. Dear Arman, if you're reading this, it means you came back. And that means you're still the boy who cares, even if the world doesn't see it anymore. I saw your videos, the fame, the lights, but I also saw your eyes. They looked tired. Not the Arman I knew, the boy who sang, not for claps, but for peace. I didn't leave because of you. I left because I didn't want to become invisible and your shadow, but maybe we're both running from something. If you want to talk, I'll be where it all started. The rooftop. Our rooftop. He read it 3 times. Then he ran. The rooftop was 2 blocks away. It was where they used to sit after school, sharing headphones and dreams. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time. His heart thumped harder than any stadium cheer, but the roof was empty. Just a worn-out diary sat on the edge. It was hers. He picked it up. The pages were full of lyrics, thoughts, moments, some about him, some about pain. One line stood out. Sometimes we have to lose ourselves in the noise to remember the silence we came from. He held the diary close. And for the first time in months, he cried. He knew what he had to do. He returned to the city the next morning, not to perform, not to pose, but to create, from truth, from memory. He went back to that small cafe, sat with her diary beside him. He started writing a song, not for charts, not for awards, but for her, for the boy he used to be, for the pain he couldn't ignore anymore. He recorded a raw version on his phone, just guitar and voice. That night, without telling anyone, he uploaded the song on his old forgotten channel. No title, no label, just for Z. By morning, it had 100 views. By noon, 5,000. By midnight, over 2 million. People were commenting things like, "This feels like a real person singing. This isn't a song, it's a cry. Who broke this man's heart?" And somewhere, in a quiet corner of the same city, Zoya watched the video. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But she didn't call him, not yet. She wanted to see if he meant it, if he'd keep going, if he'd finally sing for himself and Arman. He had no idea she'd seen it. But that night, for the first time, he slept without feeling alone. Because even if she didn't come back, her goodbye had given him something else, a reason to sing again. But then, the label found out, and the warning they gave him was worse than he expected. Arman was called into the label's glass office. It was high above the city, but all he felt was a heavy drop in his chest. His manager sat across from him, not smiling. 2 other executives joined, silent and cold. "We need to talk," one of them said. Arman nodded. They pulled up the video on a screen. 4Z was playing. His voice echoed through the room, stripped, raw, trembling. "This isn't part of your contract," the man said. "You can't release songs without our clearance." "I didn't use your studio," Arman replied, his tone calm but firm. "I didn't use your equipment. I just needed to sing that." "It's not about how you made it," the other executive said. "It's about why. Do you know how this looks to the public? You have an album coming, a campaign. You're the polished face of our brand, Arman, not some sad boy with a guitar crying into a camera." Arman looked out the window. "You want me to be perfect?" he said quietly. "But that version of me doesn't exist anymore." "Then we have a problem," his manager cut in. "Because we've invested millions in that version." There was a pause. "Either take down the video," the first man said, "or we cancel the tour and everything with it." Arman stood up. He didn't say anything, just walked out. On the ride down in the elevator, his heart raced. Outside, fans waited with cameras and posters. He smiled weakly, signed a few, then slipped into a cab. Back in his apartment, he stared at the walls, trophies, awards, gold records, all lined up like reminders of someone he didn't recognize anymore. He thought about Zoya. About that rooftop. About the diary. He picked up his phone and opened the comments section of his song. One caught his eye. "I'm 16. My brother just died last month. This song helped me breathe for the first time. Thank you." Arman closed his eyes. He couldn't delete it. He wouldn't. That night, he made another video. He sat in front of the same camera. No lighting, no editing, just truth. "I didn't plan to speak," he began. "But I guess this is the only way left for me to feel real." He talked about the pressure, about the noise, about the loneliness of being everyone's idol and no one's friend, about losing Zoya not because of fame but because he forgot who he was when she first believed in him. He didn't cry, but his voice broke more than once, and at the end, he said just one thing. "Don't know what's next, but I know I can't go back to pretending." Then, he shut the camera, uploaded it, and turned off his phone when he woke up. The world was on fire. He Spoke was trending. His fans were divided, some angry, others deeply moved. News channels ran clips of his confession. Music critics called it the bravest moment of his career. But amidst all the noise, one message arrived, a simple one, from an unknown number. "I'm proud of you." G stared at it for a long time, then smiled. It wasn't a reunion, but it was a sign. He went out for the first time in days. To the old record store he used to visit before fame. The owner, an elderly man named Yusuf, recognized him. "Came back," Yusuf said. "I needed to remember who I was." Arman replied. Yusuf chuckled. "Still chasing ghosts?" "Maybe," Arman said. "But this time, I want to catch them." They sat and listened to vinyl records for hours. Yusuf said nothing more. He didn't have to. His silence was comfort. That evening, Arman walked home. In the rain, no security, no cameras, just a hoodie and a head full of thoughts. But outside his door, something stopped him. A small notebook wrapped in plastic, his name scribbled on the front. He opened it. Inside were pages of lyrics, not his, ZOYA, single quotes S, old ones, new ones, maybe unfinished. Maybe meant just for him. At the end of the book was one line. "If you still sing for truth, maybe we can write one more song together." He clutched the notebook tight, and suddenly, his loneliness didn't feel so loud anymore, but just when he thought he had found his path. His label made a move. They leaked something from his past, something he'd buried deep, and the headlines that followed could destroy everything. Arman's face was everywhere. News apps, social media, TV screens at airports. But this time, it wasn't about his music. The headlines were cold, cruel, and loud. Viral star's dark past exposed. Leaked footage raises questions. He sat frozen on the couch, the notebook from Zoya still in his hands. His manager had warned him either take down the video or face consequences. And this was the blow. The leaked footage was from years ago. A small-town music contest. A backstage argument. His voice raised. Someone crying. The clip was cut, twisted, without context, but it was enough to spark outrage. Some viewers called him a fake. Others said he had always been arrogant beneath the surface. Hashtags turned cold. Hashtag cancel Arman. Hashtag behind the mask. Hashtag too good to be true. He turned off the screen. He hadn't seen that clip in years. He remembered that day he hadn't shouted at a stranger. He'd stood up for a friend, his bandmate, who was being mistreated, but cameras didn't care about truth. Just drama. Still, the damage was done. Brands started backing out. A major sponsor pulled his name from an upcoming campaign. His manager sent a short message. "This is the fallout you chose." Arman walked into his bedroom and looked in the mirror. Tired eyes, hollow cheeks, and yet, somehow, a strange kind of peace. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like running. He opened Zoya's notebook again. Her words on the last page replayed in his mind. If you still sing for truth? So he picked up his guitar. Not to win back fans. Not to fix his image. But because he needed to answer. That night, he went live on his channel. No announcement. No title. Just raw stream. "People think they know you," he began, "until they don't." He told the real story behind the clip. He spoke about the friend no one remembered. How that boy had been humiliated by a judge backstage for stuttering. How Arman had stood up, gotten angry, and shouted because no one else would. He said the truth felt like a whisper next to the scream of lies. But he'd whisper anyway. Then he sang a new song. One Zoya had started in the notebook he finished. The lyrics just minutes before going live. It was called Before They Knew Me. The melody was soft, almost broken, but it carried weight, and when he ended, he looked into the camera and said, "I don't expect to be saved. I just won't lie anymore." Then the stream ended. He waited for the backlash. Instead, something unexpected happened. One by one, people started speaking up. An old classmate shared a post. "Arman once gave up his solo for me when I was too nervous to sing. He never talked about it." A former janitor at his school posted, "He was the only kid who ever asked me about my day." Slowly, stories surfaced not from PR, but from people who remembered who he truly was. That night, Arman didn't cry. He just breathed. But just as the tide began to turn, he got a call. From a reporter. "Arman, someone's trying to stop your comeback," she said. "And it's not just the label, it's personal." He froze. "Who?" The voice on the line hesitated, then replied, "Someone, from your past, and I think it's someone you once trusted." The screen went dark. And Arman's world tilted again. Arman didn't sleep that night. The reporter's words played on repeat in his head. Someone from your past, someone you once trusted. He went through every name he could remember. Old bandmates, agents, even the music teacher who once promised to help him and then vanished when he got his first break. But there was one name he couldn't shake. Rehan. They were inseparable in college. Rehan with his quiet ambition. Arman with his raw talent. They had made promises over chai and cheap guitars, swearing they'd rise together. But something had happened during their first real shot. A record deal was offered to one of them. Arman got the call. Rehan didn't speak to him after that. Years had passed. Still, Arman never heard a word from him. Until now. He called the reporter back. Her name was Anya. She worked freelance. "I can't prove it yet," she said, But the anonymous account that leaked your clip, it traced back to a production house. Rehan now works with Arman felt the air leave his chest. He didn't want to believe it, but deep down, he wasn't surprised. Anya wasn't done. There's more. That clip wasn't the only thing. Someone's been pitching stories about you twisting facts, sending emails to your old sponsors, all linked to the same source. Arman looked around his apartment. The fame, the success, it had become a house made of paper, and someone was trying to burn it down. But why now? Because he chose to sing his truth. Because he stepped off the path they all expected him to follow? He needed answers. That afternoon, he drove to an address Anya found, an office in a quiet building, tucked behind a coffee shop they used to hang out at in college. He waited across the street, unsure of what he'd say if Rehan walked out. But it wasn't Rehan who appeared. It was Zoya's sister, Maryam. She wore black, her face unreadable. Arman froze. Why was she there? She hadn't spoken to him since the funeral. He followed at a distance, careful not to be seen. She walked with a purpose past the building, through a narrow alley, and into a small recording studio. The same studio Arman and Rehan used years ago to record their first demo. Arman's heart raced. He waited 15 minutes, then slipped inside. Hiding behind the doorway, he could hear voices. Low, urgent. Maryam, you said you'd keep him down. Rehan, he was supposed to disappear after Zoya. Maryam, but he's rising again. Rehan, not for long. The next leak is ready. Arman stepped back into the shadows, his breath shaking. He couldn't understand it. Zoya's own sister, Rehan. Betrayal was one thing, but Maryam? What did they mean? After Zoya, did they blame him for her death? His head spun. Suddenly, the studio door creaked open. Footsteps. Arman turned too late. A voice behind him said, "You shouldn't be here." And everything went black. When Arman opened his eyes, the room was dim. He was lying on a worn-out couch, his head throbbing. A single bulb swung above, casting shadows on the old posters stuck to the studio walls. The door was locked. His phone was gone. He sat up slowly, memories flooding back. Rehan, Maryam, their voices, the words after Zoya. He didn't know what hurt more, the physical pain or the betrayal. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. Rehan entered first, arms crossed, looking older but just as cold. Maryam followed, holding Arman's phone. Arman stood up, trying to stay calm. "Drugged me?" he asked. Rehan scoffed. "We didn't need to. You passed out from shock." Maryam's face was blank. "You weren't supposed to hear that." Arman's voice shook. "What do you mean by after Zoya? What does she have to do with this?" Rehan hesitated, then laughed bitterly. "You think Zoya loved you? She was broken after you left for fame. She begged you not to go, and when you left, she shattered." "That's not true." Arman snapped. "She supported me. She even helped me pack." "She pretended," Maryam said sharply. "You never saw how she cried when the calls stopped. When the letters stopped, you didn't see her when she started losing herself." Arman's heart pounded. "I wrote to her, every week. She never replied. She never got them," Maryam whispered, "because Rehan didn't let her." Arman looked at Rehan, stunned. "You?" Rehan shrugged. "I loved her too. I thought if I kept you away, she'd see me, but she never did." A silence fell. Then Maryam added, "She died believing you didn't care?" The words hit Arman like a punch. "No," he whispered. "I never stopped loving her. Not for 1 second." Maryam's eyes glistened, but she turned away. "Too late now." Rehan stepped closer. "And now you're back, making songs about pain, about truth. People adore you, but I see it's just guilt wrapped in music." Arman stared at them both. "You're destroying me, to punish me for something I didn't do." Rehan looked down. "You became everything I wanted to be, and Zoya loved you. That's 2 things I could never have." Maryam placed Arman's phone on the table. "We were going to leak something else. A video from your college days, raw, messy, emotional, but we won't." She turned to Rehan. "We're done." Rehan's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I came here to destroy him," she said, voice shaking. "But I can't keep living in anger." She looked at Arman. "You should tell the world the truth. About Zoya, about you." Rehan stepped back. "You're siding with him." Maryam gave a weak smile. "I'm choosing peace." Rehan stormed out. Arman sat down, breathless. Maryam handed him a small envelope. "She left this. I was too angry to give it before." He opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a letter. One sentence stood out. "If you ever sing again, sing for the love we had." Tears streamed down his face. But before he could say a word, Maryam whispered, "You're free now, don't waste it." As she walked out, Arman looked at the letter again. He knew what he had to do, but just as he stood to leave, his phone buzzed. One message, from an unknown number. "If you release that letter, you'll regret it." He stared at the screen, stunned. The war wasn't over yet. Arman stood in front of the studio mirror, the letter still in his pocket, his phone in his hand. The message haunted him. "If you release that letter, you'll regret it." His fingers trembled. Who had sent it? Was it Rehan? Someone else? Was he being watched? He stared at his reflection. Once full of ambition, now filled with questions. Everything he thought he knew, Zoya's love, his rise to fame, the silence had twisted into a web of hidden truths. But one thing was clear. Zoya had loved him deeply, enough to write him a letter before she died. That letter was the only real thing he had left of her. He took a deep breath and walked out of the room. That evening, he stepped onto the rooftop of his building with a camera, set it up quietly, and pressed record. He began to speak not as a celebrity, not as a star, but as Armand. He told the truth. About Zoya, about the letters, about how he left chasing something that only made him emptier. He read Zoya's final words aloud, and then he sang, a soft, haunting melody. Words filled with guilt, love, and longing. As the video uploaded, he knew it would spread like wildfire. But what mattered more was that Zoya's story was no longer hidden. By morning, his inbox was flooded. Messages from fans, from journalists, from people who had lost someone and never got closure. But one message stood out, an audio file sent from a private number. He hesitated, then played it. It was Zoya's voice. Armand, if you're hearing this, it means Miriam gave you the letter. I don't know what the world thinks of you now, but I remember the boy who laughed at the stars, who stayed up writing songs about raindrops. I remember your voice. I hope someday the world hears it too. Not the voice in concerts, but the voice you used when you said I love you. I hope they know. I never stopped believing in you. Armand froze. She had recorded this. His hands shook as he played it again. Zoya had known, even as she was slipping away, she had left behind her voice for him. He stepped outside, heart pounding. The morning sun was rising, golden and calm, for the first time in years. He didn't feel alone. Until he saw the black car parked outside his building. Rihan stepped out slowly, eyes bloodshot, fists clenched. Behind him stood two men Armand didn't recognize. Rihan walked up and whispered, I told you not to release it. Armand replied calmly, she deserved to be heard. Rihan's jaw tightened. This isn't over. Before Armand could react, the two men grabbed him. Rihan looked away. Armand lay in a small dark room. His wrists were bruised, his voice hoarse. The place smelled of mold and metal. Time felt slow. He didn't know if it had been hours or days, but he remembered every word of Zoya's voice message. That was keeping him alive. Outside that room, the world had caught fire. His video had gone viral, over 30 million views in 2 days. Zoya's voice, her letter, their story had reached hearts across the world. Fans demanded answers. Journalists camped outside his apartment, but no one knew where he had disappeared. Miriam tried to speak on his behalf, but Rihan had started telling his own story. On television, with tears in his eyes, he said, Armand is unstable. He's suffering. That letter was fake. I'm afraid for him. The public was confused, but not all believed Rihan. One night, as rain poured and thunder echoed over the city, Miriam received a small brown envelope at her door. Inside it, Armand's cracked phone and a blood-stained bracelet Zoya once gifted him. Her heart stopped. Miriam didn't go to the police. She knew they wouldn't believe her. Instead, she called the one person she had blocked for years, Armand's old teacher, Mr. Feroz. When he answered, his voice broke. I've been waiting for this day. Back in the dark room, Armand sat quietly, humming softly. A memory returned, his mother singing to him when he was sick, Zoya dancing barefoot in the rain. The first song he ever wrote. He whispered, I'm not afraid anymore. The door creaked open. A man entered, one of Rihan's goons. You're lucky, the man said. Rihan's gone for now. You've got 2 hours. Armand looked up. Why are you telling me this? The man didn't answer, but he dropped a bottle of water and some bread on the floor, then locked the door again. Armand knew this might be his only chance. His hands were tied, but not tight enough anymore. Carefully, painfully, he rubbed the rope against the metal edge of the bed frame. Every second felt like fire. After what felt like forever, the rope broke. He gasped in pain and stood. His legs were weak, but he didn't stop. There was a small window, barred, but open. Rain blew in. He climbed onto a chair, pushed the bars with everything he had. One broke. He forced himself through, fell hard onto wet gravel, but he ran outside. Miriam and Mr. Feroz were already searching abandoned warehouses. They had tracked the phone's last signal. It was a long shot, but they were desperate. Miriam spotted something in the distance movement. A man running barefoot, wet, limping, stopped the car. She screamed. It was Armand. She ran out into the rain, wrapped her arms around him. He collapsed into her, shaking. He was alive. That night, Armand was taken to the hospital. His body was bruised, but his heart, it had never been clearer. Reporters crowded the gate, but he stayed silent. Until 3 days later, he walked into the same stage where once he had frozen before thousands. This time, the world waited to hear his voice. Armand stood in front of the microphone. No background music, no dancers, just silence. He spoke slowly. I thought fame would fix the empty feeling inside me. It didn't. I thought forgetting Zoya would help me move on. It didn't. I thought silence would protect me. It didn't. He paused. But telling the truth, even when it hurt, even when it cost me everything that brought me home. He looked directly into the camera. To anyone out there who's been silenced, who's lost someone, who feels forgotten, you are not alone. Zoya believed in me when no one else did. And now, I believe in you. Then he sang the same song he once sang to Zoya, only now, the world heard a straw broken. Beautiful. By the time he finished, not a single person in the stadium was sitting. Thousands stood, many cried. The video broke the internet. People all over the world shared stories of love, loss, hope. Zoya's name became a symbol of courage, but Arman didn't chase the spotlight anymore. Instead, he opened a small studio, Zoya's room, where young artists could record for free. He taught music to children who couldn't afford lessons. He spoke at schools about failure, fear, and finding purpose again. He had fame, but now, he had peace too. One day, years later, a little girl asked him during a workshop, "Did you love her a lot?" Arman smiled, eyes wet. "I still do." The girl looked confused. "But she's gone, right?" He looked out the window. "No, not really. She's in every song, every truth, every person who dares to speak when it's easier to stay silent." The screen fades out slowly. One last frame appears. He was left alone in silence but chose to sing louder than fear.